Hello, everyone. Nice to see you here. So I will be almost 1 hour. I know it's might be boring, but I will try my best not to be boring you, actually. We will talk together about modern testing tools, in some context, of course. But before that, my name is Elias. I'm a software engineer. I'm a Brazilian guy, but I live in the Netherlands right now. I'm an Oracle ace, and I also one of the editors of the Java Magazine Netherlands. And you guys can find this talk a little bit later after I finish here on my Twitter and my LinkedIn as well. You guys can find me on a lot of different projects I have, including these projects on my GitHub. Okay? Before we can start the talk and the agenda, this will be a little bit like dynamic. I will show some slides, boring slides, of course, just to give you some context. I will jump to the IDE. I will show you the code. Why is that? Because we need to see it working, right? And you see not working as well, but we will solve some problems. And everything that I will show here is we are going to solve a problem. So why the talk is called Modern Testing Tools? Because actually some tools are not that modern. They are old, but they are evolving. But they will solve real and modern problems. So you guys will have 5 different tools to help you out how you can solve a lot of different problems, increase the code coverage and your confidentiality, if I'm right, in your code, okay? We are going to talk about AssertJ, RestAssured, Utility, Warmock, and PiTest. Cool? During the talk, you can ask any questions, and in each topic, I will stop and I will ask you if you have any question. You guys can ask. After that, I resume the presentation again and I continue. Cool? Nice. First tool, AssertJ. I'm showing to you here how many GitHub stars those projects have, because it's also important, because it shows that a lot of developers has appreciation that project and are using that project as well. So AssertJ is an assert library. An assert library will provide you extensions or different ways to assert, to validate if something is right or wrong through assertions, but in a lot of different perspectives. So JUnit, probably you guys might use JUnit 4 or 5. JUnit provides few assertions, like is true, is false, is equal, and few ones for collections. But AssertJ, it's a library full of assertions for total different things that we face day by day. And if you're not using an assertion library like this, we might create more codes to make sure we can test our code. So why not using a proper tool to do a proper job? We can do a lot of things like test Java, the primitive objects, temporal types, atomic types, any kind of strings, iterables, predicates, and of course, any kind of collection that Java provides to you. But what I show to you will be 2 different things that AssertJ can do to ease your life. It's 3, but will be in 2. One is the recursive comparison. Another one is soft asserts, and the other one is custom assertions. And one thing later for you guys, when you get the slides, I have here the whole explanation about the code, but I will show this to you on my IDE, okay? So you don't need to pay that much attention here. Sometimes I will just explain a little bit about the code, and we jump directly to the code itself. So this recursive comparison, we have a problem to solve for assertions. If I have 2, like in this context I'm testing an API. Normally we have the request body and the response body, right? And for few operations, those are similar or almost equals. For example, I have here a simulation object, which is my payload, my request, and it will return later the same simulation, but maybe with more data. And I need to compare if what I was requesting has everything in my response. If I try to do an equal to, that is a common thing in Java, it will fail, because the comparison for the equals to compare the reference of the objects. But if I need to try to test all the information inside the object, AssertJ provides a way to iterate in each field and compare the results. So I won't fail during the comparison. Cool. I will show you in a minute this in code. The next one that we'll talk about is soft assertions. And this I will explain in the code. And the other part that I will explain the code again is the custom assertions. So again, those slides are just for reference for you later, but you can see it right now through the examples. So I will jump to my IDE. And do I need to increase a little bit more the font size? Maybe? Yep. Cool. So recursive comparison, right? So where is my code? So this is the soft assertions that I will show you here. So cool. What I have here, in this scenario, let's say I have an object simulation, okay, that I'm sending through like a request. And after that, I will compare this through a result. But the object is almost the same, but it's the first one is simulation, second one is simulation DTO, because I need to even manage sometimes different DTOs, or an entity or a DTO, just to compare the results. So one has few results, another has more results, but they are the same in some sense. Cool? If I try to do, if you see the first thing, they have the same data, right? They are named John, they have this number, they have this email, this amount, the same number of installments, everything. But if I try to do assert that simulation 1 is equal to simulation 2, and I will run it here. What happened? Java 21. This happens all the time, right? When you try to do when to demo something. Don't take a picture right now because I'm trying to solve a problem. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, this is exactly the source code, Java 21, but it's correct. Let me try again. Not such field. This is the, I'm gonna ask you help, guys. This is the issue for Java 21, right? Using, but it's not, because of Lombok. I remember. Don't use Lombok, by the way. I don't know why I'm using here. I'm just using Lombok here because for some reason, sometimes it's easy to explain all the details, but don't use. So I need to update Lombok to version 30.30, because this one has the fix for this. Aside for that, apart from that, let me close. Let me run. This was easy. See, Lombok is not your friend. Now I have an issue, but not the Lombok one. So if you see here, the failed, the comparison is equal. But logically, it makes sense is equal because they have all the same attributes with the same value. But they are not equal because the objects are not equal. They are different objects. How we can solve that is super easy in terms of data. I'm using this feature from AssertJ. Using recursive comparison, then I tell the tool to is equal to. What's recursive comparison does? It gets the name for the first object and the same attribute for the next object, compare the values, and starts to iterate in other fields. So if I do this, if I run this code will run, because I'm looking at the fields and the values, not if the object is equal or not. So I have my super simple test here with one line of code. What we probably do normally with this, instead of using recursive assertion, you do assert that simulation1 dot get name dot is equal to simulation2 dot get name. But what is the problem with this? You need to write a lot of code just to compare the values. And every time you have a new attribute, at least one more line. You can just remove this and use this super easy feature. Done. One line of code compares a lot of things. Cool? But we can increase this code maintainability. Super difficult word to say that, right? So the next one that we saw here is soft assertions. Who knows what it is, soft assertions? No? No? Okay, cool. But assertions, you guys know what it is, right? Nice, but there's two things that is quite new in the market. That is hard assertions and soft assertions. How this works? Simulation here. So this is an example of a hard assertion. What I have here, same thing, simulation object. I have some data here, right? Hard assertion is basically an assertion per item you do using the code. So I have 3 hard assertions. One to see if the name is equal to Anna, if the insurance is false, and if its amount is greater than 3. All those will fail, right? Because my data here is John, the insurance is true, no, it's false, but it's true here. And the amount is 500, right? They will fail, let's see. They failed, but not they failed. The first exception, the first assert failed, because it was the first one. This is the normal default behavior for unit testing tools. It will halt, it will stop the execution in the first failure. Cool? And what is the problem with this? Okay, it's not Anna, it's John, Jesus, okay, let's see. But John, whoops. And I will run again. And now the next one failed. And you guys will be in this loop forever, right? And this is super difficult because from my sense, at least, I need to know all the issues. And after I can fix all the issues, right? Because we do this, we test the values of complex objects. How we can fix this? There's a feature in AssertJ called soft assertions. And I use this assert softly. I create a reference for it. I named it softly. And before the assert that, I added softly assert that. Simulation name is equal to John. Softly, gently assert that, this, and that. What is going to happen here? I will change the data, and it's true, and I put 2. Okay, everything will fail, right? But when I run this, I can see the list of issues that are failing. So I can see here, the first one, expected was Anna, but was John. The next one, expect true, but was false. And the last one, where is the last one? No, the last one is actually working, right, because it's 2. No, it should not work, but it's somewhere here. And I can see the list of items asserted here. It's way more easier, right? Because I can see all the issues and I can fix all the issues instead of fix one by one every time. Cool? Questions here so far? Yes?
Can we mix the default assertion?
If you can mix? No, of course.
To make the default.
To make it the default? No, it should be explicitly in the code. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. By the way, JUnit 5 has this feature as well, so soft asserts.
What about the objects that are not primitive with the previous recursive assert?
Objects that are primitive, because I was using only primitives, yeah. It will be the same thing. You need to get the object, get any attribute internally, and we'll go through the object as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's smart enough to go through, and even the collections. If you have a collection with all the data, it will be the same.
Thanks.
I know that's weird, but it works. Probably can improve this, adding this example or a list on an object, right? So it would be cool, thank you. Cool, the next one is the custom assertions. Assertions are awesome, but sometimes you have a super complex object with a lot of rules, right? Easy thing, if I have just a rule about this installment, let's say I can only do something if the installments is greater than 2 and less than, like, I don't know, 40. It's a rule, right? It should be in between that. But during the assertions, it needs to write a lot of assertions. It needs to read the code. I can understand now that it's testing that is greater than or less than or etc. What we can do, we can create custom assertions to see like this in the end of the code. Assertion that simulation has valid installments. Assert that simulation has valid amount. And the whole rules about it will be in this method has valid installments or has valid amounts. How we can do this? Boom, boom, not this, here. So let's find the code. Soft asserts. Yeah. Not this, this. Cool. It's something from AssertJ. I need to create an assert class. And I need to extend this abstract assert from AssertJ as well. And what I need to do, I need to add the constructor for it. That is a normal thing in the documentation. They will tell you, create a constructor and implement the assert that as well, because the assert that will be from your class, not from native AssertJ, where I'm returning this same class. But my rule is now here, has valid installments. And no, my computer doesn't like this. Like, let me just remove and insert again, and back. So I have my rule here. So my installments should be pling, pling, yeah. Don't move. Yeah, don't breathe. Okay. So, or less than 2, or greater or equal to 48, right? So I have the rule here. Now it's more fluent, and you can understand a little bit more. Not this one. Not this one. Oh, I didn't add it, but what I could do here. Simulation assert dot assert that simulation 1 dot get installments has valid installments. But why is integer and doesn't make sense right now? Simulation. Yeah, sorry, the object. My object simulation, it will look for my attribute, the installments, and will do the test. So way easier, right? Than express the whole number there.
Having such an assert extracted as a distinct class, would be that new class also exposed to a unit test?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So we need to test this class that will test something. Yes, you're totally right. If you need really to, yeah.
And it's not trivial.
No, no. But normally you have like, when we do architecture in the better way with tests, we have a set of tests that test your architecture like this. This is somehow our architecture ready for tests. And then you have the test that will test something.
For me, it sounds like a business rule, which may be
It is.
extracted in a
Yeah.
non-assertion
Yeah.
class.
Yeah, but you will have this anyway. You need to test the business rule in some point, in some sense. And in order to test this business rule with different data, I will have different assert methods. Just iterate with different numbers. 1, 2, 48, 49, for example. And instead of having all those lines, you can have the data iterated with those different, but here you can do only this. Instead of writing again, for example, assert that, exactly like this, simulation 1 dot get installments dot is equal to 1. Of course, of course, of course, you can. This is a silly example just to show you the idea, but of course. Great question.
This is why I think that it's more for integration tests it's applicable, right? With the cost of actually testing the simulator last year, that's just will be beneficial because
That's right.
if you do integration test or a test back in the functionality domain, and then you're making this assertion and then making it easy for rectifier integration tests.
Perfect.
But then right, the simple testing that unit tests, you might
Cool. I will just go through the other topics, but if you guys have more questions, I'm super happy. I'll be super happy to answer you. Next two, for now, RestAssured. Probably you guys develop or test APIs. Nowadays it's super common. And we need to find a way to test it. And the best library possible nowadays for Java is RestAssured. And for instance, who knows Quarkus here? Nice. Quarkus uses RestAssured behind the scenes. The whole infrastructure of the whole code of RestAssured. Because they know that this tool is awesome. So instead of creating a new tool, they are just using a super good tool for that. And supporting that tool, of course. And you guys can see here the blue screen of death. Yeah. And I will just do the same thing again. RestAssured is super easy in general because it has the BDD approach to understand the code, but not to apply any BDD approach through test automation. Why is BDD approach? Because I can see the keywords, given, when, then. Given a precondition, when the action itself, then the result of that it needs to validate or assert. Cool. It's a really good tool to test. And this is the basic code for that. With these few lines, I can test like this register endpoint. And a test, a real test, might look like this. So I'm using when I do a get in the simulations endpoint, then the stats code is 200, it's okay, and I extract the simulation, the response body, and after that, in the last line, I will assert that response body if it contains what I requested. Super valid test. But this won't scale in a professional environment with a lot of teams. If you have 1, 2, or 3 projects, perfect. If you have 5, 10, 20, hundreds of projects, thousands of projects, this don't scale. What we scale? We can create the whole architecture for RestAssured for free using the Open API generator. Probably you guys are using it to generate the clients from Spring or clients for mobile or wherever you guys want to generate clients. But the Open API generator also have a generator for RestAssured, which is super nice. And for this, I will show to you idea, RestAssured, Open API. What is the process to do it actually? So the first thing, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Open API generator or not, but the first thing I need is the Open API spec, a YAML file that I can understand the specs from the API. And I'm in the correct one? Yes. Let me find where I added, there, down there. Here, the first thing I'm doing, I have here the Maven Wagon plugin to be able to download something. And through this plugin, I'm telling the plugin, okay, during the generated source phase, download this Open API spec from this directory, from this URL, could be a directory or anything. Cool? So I have the spec, I downloaded the spec. Super easy step, but a lot of code with XML, fortunately. What I need to do later, I need to use the Open API generator to generate my client code. And to generate my client code, I need to say, okay, now look at this spec, look at everything, and generated the Java code for me. Cool? But what is the difference here? I'm telling OpenAPI generator, the library is not Spring, is not something related to mobile, it's RestAssured. It's for this testing tool. And it will generate all the models and everything based on this RestAssured infrastructure. When it generates, I have everything in the generated source with all the different classes, docs, etc. So everything will be here. My client, my API, my models, everything will be here. Cool? But what is the focus? Main focus. So in a normal usage of RestAssured, I have a code like this. Given I have a parameter that has this value, when I do a get for the restrictions endpoint, sending that value, I should have not found. And this next one will look like the same but a different test. When I have this parameter with this value, and when when I send this to the restriction endpoint with that value, then should be okay, 200. And the message should contain this, or is like this. But you can see a little bit of repeated code, right? This is only 2 tests. Imagine a lot of tests you guys will create. There's an intermediate aspect with RestAssured that we can create request and response specifications to ease a little bit what I'm doing. But this is not ideal because you can see it's more or less the same code. I'm just using a spec, like a template, to do that request or to do that action. And it's not ideal as well. It's an intermediate step. What is the best thing to do? From my perspective, from the perspective of a lot of people, using the client generated by OpenAPI generator, and this will provide the methods from that client. So what I can do something like this as a test, and it's way more easy to understand. So I have this number, and I'm telling, okay, this restriction API service, query CPF without restriction, passing that value, and I will associate, I will do behind the scenes the object mapping, because RestAssured do this behind the scenes for me, and I will see if the message of it contains that value. Or a different one, when I do query a CPF, assert that is restricted is false. Can you see how less code I have? And more easy to understand, more human readable it is, this code, for free, if I generate the client code based on RestAssured. I know this is a little bit complicated, there's a lot of more things behind the scenes, but this is to show you that you have an awesome tool to do all the API testing that you guys can do, but there's a super good way to ease this whole test creation. I will not deep dive that much because this is another talk that I have. It's just to show you an overview of what you can do with RestAssured, the ultimate thing you can do. Cool? Questions?
Would you choose this versus the Spring, for example? Spring MVC tests?
It's pretty sorry, it's being recorded, but test is a great tool, but not that great as compared to RestAssured, unfortunately. No. Even I developed some Spring Boot applications. I use RestAssured, not Spring Test. Because it's way easier to create everything in this way. Imagine you create a lot of REST templates to be able to do the request response all the time. So with this approach, you don't need to do anything.
If you're testing your own APIs, then is it easier with Spring Boot and MVC because it starts with the data that you guys...
Yeah, but yeah, I agree. But this tool can test any kind of APIs, old, news, anything. So it's normal for developers, right, to use the tool embedded with the framework. I understand that, yeah. But my experience right now, by experience, I prefer doing this with RestAssured. But what is the correct answer? If you are using any library, you're doing tests, you are right. Doesn't matter which library you're using, so you have tests. So you are in a good shape in.
This is extremely useful if you're testing next because you really have open spec for it and integrate it into the project.
Yeah. This is another problem. Anyway, cool. Next one is related to APIs, because when you test APIs, not everything is synchronous, right? In some sense, it's asynchronous. So there is a library called awaitility to test asynchronous calls. And by asynchronous, I mean, probably you guys have system using RabbitMQ, Kafka, Redis, and anything that won't return the data instantly in a synchronous way. And you guys still need to create some tests for that, right? So this tool will provide a lot of different ways. And it's super easy to create it. Let's say I will simulate this with you, but I will do another request. And this request will generate a log, an event for me. But this event will not be synchronous. It will take like few seconds to log in the event table. And I want to see if it's logged in the event table with the correct metadata, because it's a normal thing to do in audit systems, right? We need to test even the audit part. But it will take some time. If I don't wait for it, I would add a thread.sleep. But this is the worst thing you can do in your code, because it will sleep your code for a lot of seconds. Maybe the request will long like 2 seconds. Less than that, but it's not synchronous. But you might add 10 seconds. And every 10 seconds delay, you could run a lot of different tests in 10 seconds. So it will increase the time your tests are running. And nowadays, we need to decrease that time, right? To have faster validations and fast feedback. So what I can do, actually, I need to create a method based on this is tied to my entities I will show. I try to find that item in my repository. So I know that item will be in my repository, in my table. I'm trying to ping all the time. And it's a ping, it's a thread going there. As soon as I have it, the thread will stop and return that. Instead of just pause for a lot of seconds and, oh, okay, I don't have it. It's okay in this, you guys understand a little bit? And what I will tell, actually, I will, before I make my assertions, the previous line is await at most 10 seconds, I just increase it just as an example, until the event is found. So it won't stop in 10 seconds. If in 2 seconds I have it, it will stop and we'll go to the next line, instead of being 10 seconds waiting for that thing that can be 1 or 2 seconds there. Cool? How I can simulate this for you? It's in Idea Credit API, and it's on this event source, the for checkout. Cool. So if I start my application, wait a second. It's annoying. Yeah, if I start my application, it's a Spring Boot application, by the way. And I can see the Open API spec, not 89, 88. Yeah, the same spec I have, I can see it through the Swagger UI, Open API, right? And I have my database. It's another production one. I should have it here, but I need to log in again without the session. What the hell is not happening? 88. What the hell is not? What happened? I run the test, Jesus Christ. Yeah. So I run the application. Up and running. So I have access to the database. It's H2, it's not real database, but just for this talk. Password. Cool. And I have here a table called event store. So everything that I will do in the API will be logged here, okay? And I have my API, so I will post anything. Let's try out. Execute. And I will try to see in the table if it's here. It's not here yet. Now it's here. You see, it's after some seconds I have it. If I try to run a test. Let me enable this. So if I try to run a test doing the same thing, or like in any endpoint, like in this sense, the get, I know that if I look at that table, it will take some time to have the data there. And the test will fail, of course, because the test won't, there is no instructions on the test to wait for something here. So if I run this, failed. No, application, of course, the application is running. Let's do again. It's failed. What I need to do, basically, what I'm doing here, I have this scalable class from this utility where I'm going through my repository, easy one, right? Find by CPF, super easy one. And I'm trying to find that data that I'm trying to get. But what I'm telling in this code, this scalable boolean will return true when it's found. So this code will loop until I found it. It will return false, 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 false. At some certain point, it will return true. But in order to do this, I need to connect with the await method. So what I'm doing here in this piece that will solve the problem, await at most 10 seconds until I can find this. And I can find this, it's this scalable is internal loop. This internal loop will be there for at most 10 seconds. And if I run this right now, you can see the code is running, waiting for that method. And at some point, success, because it was waiting for that data being there, and after I can validate it. Cool? Questions? So this might solve a lot of problems you guys have. And please, please, please try to not use thread.sleep for anything.
Availability can also return an object as well.
Yeah, it can return like primitives, the Boolean objects, and different data if you need different data, yes. I don't know what's happening, but I will just unplug and plug it again. Cool. Next tool, I have more two tools. WireMock. Who knows WireMock here? Nice. Everyone should know this tool. This is an awesome tool. WireMock, you can do two things with WireMock. You can use in your unit test or integration test to mock some different endpoints or different things, different classes, everything. And normally, if you do through Java code, it will look like this. You have a stub, you tell the code which endpoint, in this sense is an API, I am trying to mock. When I do a query with this data, it will return a response like this. So I'm actually simulating everything without having it, like assessing it. Because probably this is a separate entity, separated API that is not in my domain, so I need to mock it. Cool? This is a normal Java code for it. But there's something that you guys might face. I face this a lot. So the same API or endpoint that I'm mocking, a lot of things are mocking as well. And I want to remove this code. How I can solve the problem of everyone using the same thing? And imagine, the other team who owns that API is changing the contract. Everyone will fail together. And everyone needs to do a lot of things together. And this is a pain in the ass because you guys know that it happens a lot. What we can do, we can implement the service virtualization approach, which is creating a service or a server, let's say in this sense, and having that API mocked and serving all the purposes I need for testing. instead of being inside my code of my team, inside of the code of Otavio's team, etc., I create one big service that is a mock. And you guys might try to solve this problem, create an application actually with Spring, with Quarkus, etc., to mock that. But it's not ideal. You guys creating a lot of codes just to simulate few things. And WireMock can easily solve this. How it can solve it? Through Java code, or doing like this. Idea, WireMock. Let's do it again. Yeah, now we have. No? Yeah. So commit no. Don't. We can do this through JSON files. And I know that's weird, but it's super easy through JSON files. You can do it through Java code. I do it in some things with Java code, but I will show you through JSON files. Why? Anyone can understand and implement JSON files, right? Even though I'm not a Java coder, I can do it. So, and WireMock has this concept of request and response as any API, but in WireMock terminology, it's the files and mappings, okay? So, let's say, no, this is the mapping. For WireMock, when I request, to this URL with this specific data, and this request, the method is a get, then the response will be 200. The header will have a content type application JSON, and it will return this JSON file as response body. This JSON file is super easy, is this message with a data inside. Super easy, right? And I can start matching a lot of different things right now. If I have this simulation, for example, when I do a request for this URL, and this request is a post, and this post has a JSON, and this JSON has an attribute, CPF, that has this value, then my response is forbidden. It will return a JSON and this file for me in the response body. And this file will return this thing, another message telling that I have a restriction. Cool? Now I have an application, and I will run this application. Where is it? Here in my terminal. Here, it's another application, but it's a Spring Boot one. MVN Spring Boot run. This application, it's one microservice that depends on another microservice that I don't have access. So if I do the requests that I need, it will fail because I'm not connected to that, somehow to that. And the normal thing, I would create a mock for my app, for my service, in order to run all the tests and everything. But remember, all the teams probably will need the same thing, and we are trying to solve through the service virtualization. If I access the OpenAPI spec through the front end, and this is the same, no, this is, the port is different. I have basically the same API, but just running a different project. And if I try out to do a post, 500. And this 500 is because here I'm trying to hit an endpoint that doesn't exist, which is supposed to be this mock, this thing that I should mock. But instead of mocking my code, what I will do? I have it exactly here, right? The same request. This API version 1 restrictions, API version 1 restrictions. It's matched perfectly. I just need to adjust the data here to be the same in order to adjust. What we can do in this service utilization approach, I can create a Docker container, and it's exactly what I'm doing here with WireMock. I'm saying, okay, get the latest version of WireMock for me, mapping the port, this is the container name, and map the files. This is a normal thing for WireMock. So I need to copy that files that I have in my project to this container, okay? And as soon as I run this, it will generate a container. Now what you guys can do, deploy this container in any infrastructure, internally or externally. I do externally because it will be there forever. All the things can hit that. And it will be there existing. And anyone can use. Cool? Now if I try to do the request, and remember, we have a specific value to use, is this one. So I will copy this value. I have my container running, so we can see here in my WireMock, it's running with a lot of logs here. It's okay. And now, if I try again with that value, now I have a return. It's not 500. So is it correct? So it's returning to me forbidden, right? 403. With a message, CPF has a restriction. And remember, the payload, I have this CPF ending as 14. If I see what I did with WireMock, in this sense, I have exactly the same thing here, and I have the same response here. When do that post, I did the post, right? When I do the post in simulations, and it has that value, exactly like the same I have there, reply to me as 403. So I'm creating a mock object, deploying a Docker container, and this approach normally is called service virtualization. You can deploy in an app, of course, in anything, but in Docker container nowadays, it's the easiest thing. And now you guys can either distribute this Docker image, or you guys can deploy this Docker image in a long-lived infrastructure, and everyone will have access all the time. Cool? This we can solve problems as mocking the same object in different teams. And this will ease a lot of maintenance and avoid a lot of troubles. And anyone can update this code because it's a simple JSON, you can create more requests and response. Questions?
I think this is one tip I would say that also generating the mocking, you can record the mocking quite easily.
Yeah. One thing that I not mentioned here, but you can record actually. Instead of creating this file, it has a feature that you can, okay, I will simulate it. You can use Postman or any other front-end tool for that. And you do the exercise, it will record everything for you. You don't need to learn a little bit the structure of WireMock in this JSON file. You can record it. But as soon as you get experience on it, it's easier to create the file right away instead of recording as well. Nice mention. Cool, no questions. So let's go to the last tool. Who knows PiTest? PiTest. 1, 2, 3, thanks God, 4, 5, 6. No, one more? No? This is a tool for mutation testing. And what is a mutation testing? It's an approach that the library, this library itself, will try to mutate your code. What is the mutator code? It won't become like a mutant, like an X-Men or anything. It will start changing values, not in a random way, but in a specific like rules that this tool have, just to see if your code will survive to that change. And if your code won't survive to those changes, it's a fault because you should test that. And of course, in order to have this, you must have first tests, and after that you can apply this mutation testing, okay? Because it will mutate your testing with your code, and we will try to compare those different results. When I have something called lived mutations, indicating that you have something to work, there's a problem. If there's something like killed mutations, coverage is fine, so you're doing a great job. Cool? And I will apply here a super silly example, but just to explain to you how this works. And it works in a lot of different ways, but it will be super silly, but you guys will understand what the tool can do. Okay? So let's open. This I can stop, I don't need anymore. So idea, PiTest example, nice. I can close this, close this, close this, close everything. I have a simple code here. This is simple, right? If A is less minus, it's an integer, less, have the is less than B, in this sense, I will return A is less than B. Otherwise, B is greater than A. It's correct? No? What is the first problem here? Okay, park that. Normally, this code is right? If it's not less than, it's greater than. Yeah, wait, it's a silly example, like I said before. Cool? And I need to create a test for that, of course. So I have here 2 tests for that class. One, I'm using like 2 parameters, 1 and 2. And for this, I need to, this is an A, this is a B, right? So A is less than B, but if I do the opposite, 2 and 1, A is 2, B is 1, B is greater than A. It seems, it's a silly example, just bear with me. If I run this, everything is fine. And if I run this using the coverage part with IntelliJ, I can see that I have here 100% of coverage. Of course, because I have 2 tests is covering there. And if I click here, I can even see the green lines that I'm really covering this. Cool? This is a silly example, but normally when you create tests, you can remember all the possible edge cases for that, or all the possible solutions you can apply. So that's why we have this mutation testing. In order to have it in my Pwn XML, I have it as a profile here. So I have the PiTest Maven. And I'm using JUnit 5, so I have the plugin for JUnit 5 here. And I'm telling PiTest, every time that my test will compile, which is anything that you do like verify, install its package, etc., it will pass through this lifecycle in Maven, which is test compile, right, or test. And I will do the mutation coverage. This is the full normal method for PiTest. So what I will do, I will show my terminal view. What is, can view my terminal here? Ah, here. And I will run mvn, nope. I run mvn test compile, and I will use the profile PiTest, okay? This will trigger this tool. This tool will do the coverage. Thanks God, my machine is good, so it runs super fast. Normally it takes few seconds, and it's done. Everything is done. There's a lot of different things from PiTest here. And this will generate a report. PiTest reports. And when I open it, I can have the overview of this mutation coverage, the code coverage and this mutation coverage. And if I can see this, my class, in the package, mutators, line coverage, 100%. Because I have those 2 tests, line coverage, 100%. Mutation coverage, there's 1 fault here. And strength, also 1 fault. If I click here, I can see the spot. There's a red mark here. A less than B, right? What I could do in terms of testing here, what I'm missing here. Now it's your turn. What? Equals, right? Because probably this code mutation try to add 2 equals. And there's no 2. If I try to do this 2 equals, let's go to the code. So what I will create, void equals string actual, it's equal to mutators dot conditional 1 and 1. Cool? Let's just try to print out this, okay? It's not a test anymore, yeah, still, but run. B is greater than A. Is it correct? No, it's equals. So I can see some faults I'm doing even during code. Again, it's a silly example, but you can see that actually I'm missing an actual thing in my code, right? If it's equals. And I can implement, I won't implement here, of course, but just you guys to understand that, of course, I need to implement more the equals, and I will run the mutation coverage again. Maybe I'm missing something, and the mutation coverage will tell me. This is a silly example, but for complex codes, this PiTest works really, really better, because I cannot spot sometimes super fast what is wrong. And this tool will tell me what is wrong and how I can improve it. And if you guys would like to see a real project using this, there's a Jakarta project, Jakarta JNoSQL and Jakarta Data, using these tools to increase the coverage. And by the way, Jakarta Data is being used for a lot of different libraries nowadays. And the team just decides to do it to increase the coverage of the library that is being used in probably the frameworks you guys are using. So behind the scenes, you guys are using a library that nowadays is really well tested, thanks to PiTest. Thank you so much.